If you get murdered in the city of Portland, there's a good chance your family could anguish for years over who did it. Darian Richardson was murdered 8 years ago. No arrests. Matt Blanchard's family, 6 years. No closure. David Anderson's family, 2 years. Brian Garcia, 1 year and waiting. 4 of 11 Portland homicide victims over the last decade whose killers have not been caught. You've heard their stories all week. Now it's time to hear from Portland police. The question is simple. Why? The answer, not so much. When it comes to solving a murder, the pressure is on in the first 48 hours.
Within the first 48 hours, statistically, if you haven't been able to develop a suspect, it's going to be a difficult case to prove. And we certainly see that on a regular basis.
This is a critical time, not just for victims' families, but for communities. Cities that solve crimes are safer. We wanted to know how Maine's 2 major cities, Portland and Bangor, stack up when it comes to making arrests for murders. News Center Maine spent 6 months gathering and analyzing extensive homicide investigation data. Before showing you our findings, it helps to understand how homicide investigations are carried out in Maine. Portland and Bangor police are the only 2 departments in the state that investigate their own homicide cases. State police handle the rest. Our investigation reveals that in the 10-year period from 2007 to 2017, the Portland Police Department solved 57% of its homicides. That's 6% lower than the national average, 30% lower than the state of Maine, and 43% lower than the city of Bangor, which has solved every single murder for the last 10 years. What's your reaction to those numbers?
Well, we'd obviously like to see it at 100% for sure.
Portland Police Assistant Chief Vern Malik, a 32-year veteran of the department, says that while the numbers are unfortunate, he's comfortable with the fact that Portland follows a national trend.
There's been a trend since the 1990s across the country of fewer and fewer homicides being solved.
True, and we'll get back to that in a minute. First, why such a drastic difference in clearances between the 2 local departments?
I'm not familiar with what the Bangor numbers are, and I'm not familiar with what the state cases are either. And I think you'd have to do a lot more research into the individual cases to see what exactly they are.
So you can't speak to any kind of possible general challenges that the department may face?
Well, I can say that one of the difficulties that we have is when cases are drug-related, they're a lot more difficult to solve. But, not knowing what the Bangor cases look like, I really couldn't comment.
Fair point. So we went back to the drawing board and broke down the numbers. In the 10-year period we're looking at, Bangor had 18 homicide cases. Portland had 26. In Bangor, 7 of those cases were fights that ended in murder. 4 were domestic violence cases, 3 involved children, 2 were random, and 2 were drug-related. All of those cases were solved.
We see a significant number of our homicides are drug-related, and those are particularly vexing.
If we look at all of Portland's cases, 11 of them were fights that ended in murder, 5 domestic violence cases, 4 either unknown cause or it hasn't been publicized, 2 were self-defense cases, 1 random, and 3 were drug-related. So proportionately speaking, both cities had about the same percentage of drug-related homicides, but nearly half the cases in Portland are still open. We brought our detailed information about each case back to the assistant chief 2 weeks later, but he still wouldn't talk specifics of a potential Portland police problem.
I can't speak to that except to say that I have no information at all about the Bangor cases.
Do you still feel like you can blame a lower clearance number on drug-related homicides if Bangor has the same situation?
I'm not going to say why Bangor solved 100% of their crimes. I can tell you that there was a 10-year period where Portland had a 100% clearance rate in homicides as well.
He's right. From 1998 to 2008, Portland solved all its homicides. In the 10 years since, 11 homicides, nearly half, have gone unsolved. In our first interview, Malik told us homicides are the most serious crimes Portland PD investigates.
We put all of our resources behind investigating those.
Again, we crunched the numbers. Portland's population is twice the size of Bangor's. Its police force has more than 140 officers, while Bangor's has 76. Both departments have a 12-detective unit that investigates homicides. We asked Chief Malik if he feels that a 12-detective unit is enough for Maine's biggest city.
I don't feel that having a pool of 12 detectives that could potentially investigate what averages out to be 2 homicides a year is inadequate. So I'm very comfortable with the staffing levels that we have.
When asked about those lower clearance rates,
Do you see that as a problem, or do you see that as just the way it is?
I always want to have a 100% clearance rate.
in our first conversation, Malik said more communication with the public could help close these cold cases.
As a matter of fact, your interview and questions that you've asked have prompted us to look at our website and say, why did we wait 2 years to put it on the website? So why not 6 months?
So that list of unsolved homicides on your website, you wait 2 years before you actually put the profile up?
That's what we have been doing in the past, yeah, but I think we're ready to change that now and perhaps go to, within 6 months.
When we came back with more questions 2 weeks later, he walked it back.
2 years seems to be an average that departments look at.
So is that something that has been decided that will change, or?
No, we haven't had any further discussions on that.
Malik says he doesn't see a need for change in the department.
We are always looking to improve, no matter what it is. We're looking to improve. But at this point, there isn't any glaring shortfall that we need to address.
A clearance rate below the state and national average. For victims' loved ones, it's not about numbers. It's about knowing who and why. Malik says it's up to witnesses to come forward and help solve these murders.
Do you foresee any need for change?
I don't know what we would do differently right now. I feel like we are putting 100% of our resources behind it.
Hi, my name is Judy Richardson.
And I'm Wayne Richardson.
Our daughter Darian Richardson was shot on January 8th, 2010. It's not the same. You've got a cloud over your head all the time.
Darian Richardson wasn't supposed to die.
Actually, we were thrilled that we found out that she was doing well. That she wasn't killed that night.
The bubbly 25-year-old was an athlete, loved her family, and was known for her infectious smile. She was climbing the ladder at work and had moved into an apartment on Ratcliffe Street with roommates. She was asleep with her boyfriend in that apartment when a gunman broke in and changed the direction of her promising future.
You can't believe it. I'm like, what? So, I couldn't really register what they were saying. So, I hung up. I got Wayne up and I said, Darian's been shot.
Darian was shot in her hand and leg. Her boyfriend was shot in the arm. Even with a bullet left lodged in her leg, within a month, she was walking again. While she healed physically, new details emerged that shaped the story of that January night.
Darian, high school graduate, football player.
The boyfriend Darian had been dating for a few months knew more than he was telling police.
People we knew that knew him say, yeah, he's a good kid.
Corey Gerard was dealing oxycodone. Detectives knew early on his illegal business played a major role in the shooting.
Whoever did this was looking for him.
On February 28th, that home invasion and shooting became murder. Judy and Wayne had sent Darian to Miami to visit a friend.
We all thought it would be a good idea for her to go down and get some sunshine and warmth.
It was the last time they would see her. The bullet left in her leg caused a lethal blood clot. Her parents knew when a detective showed up on their doorstep.
And when he came in, we saw the look on his face. And I said, it's not good, is it, Heels? Not good.
Darian's death is one of 11 unsolved homicides in Portland in the last decade. Over the years, detectives have gotten closer to catching her killer. Early on, they found the murder weapon.
I was really hopeful when they called us in and we had this big meeting that, they found the gun.
Detectives say the man who owns the gun now isn't the shooter, and he won't tell investigators where he bought it.
After that, it was nothing.
Then, in 2015, Corey Gerard was charged with possession of a firearm while using illegal drugs. Portland police hoped jail time would bring them the answers they needed.
He offered some cooperation following that, and we followed up on those leads. That would be the last significant development in that case.
Judy and Wayne Richardson have become advocates, passionately speaking out against gun violence and advocating for crime victims and their families, hoping to one day have an answer.
The puzzle's there. There's missing a few pieces of the puzzle.
I think there's a missing piece or two to every one of these unsolved cases.
43% of Portland's cases from the last 10 years are unsolved. That's a higher percentage of unsolved murders than the state and country. Assistant Police Chief Vern Malik says it's up to witnesses to come forward with information. Details that the Richardsons have been waiting on for 8 years.
You miss her.
No, miss her, you know.
You miss her every day.
Hi, my name is John Howard, and my brother was Matthew Blanchard. He was killed on July 11th of 2012.
Matt Blanchard had a rough go. He was rebellious and got in trouble with the law as a kid, but had turned his life around after meeting his girlfriend, Casey.
In the first year they were together, they started going to college, full-time job, living in South Portland, paying rent.
Then, Matt was driving. Casey was in the passenger seat when police say he fell asleep at the wheel, sending the car into a tree. Casey died, and Matt was charged with causing a fatal accident.
Mentally going through some things.
Weeks later, Matt was dead, shot on an open road in Portland just after 1 a.m.
Yeah, I was a little late, but I don't care, it's my brother.
The night began as a late-night walk to take Matt's mind off things. 4 brothers, a trip to the grocery store, and a bottle of Captain Morgan.
I take care of my brother as much as I can, especially when he's going through losing a girlfriend of 5 years.
The night ended when shots rang out.
And of course, I just saw a figure with the hands up, so I turned around and I took off.
John thought it was fireworks until he felt the bullet in his arm.
It didn't hurt, it was just hot, it was warm.
He ran, worried for his life. He remembers lying in an ambulance and seeing a crowd of people standing over his brother's body. John didn't realize what happened until his family told him at the hospital.
He told me Matt was dead. And I guess my mom told me I lost it, I guess. And, you know, and the doctors put me under again.
What happened in the hours leading up to the shooting? That's where details get fuzzy and where the police and the brothers disagree.
The words that come out of Michael Soschek's mouth were, "We do believe it was provoked." Absolutely not. Not one bit. If sitting on the side of the road eating a bag of chips is provoking someone to shoot you, it's pretty crazy.
Portland Police Assistant Chief Vern Malik doesn't use the term provoked, but says detectives believe something must have happened to lead up to that fateful end.
We don't believe it's random. We believe that there was an exchange earlier in the evening between 2 groups, and the shooting is what bled out of that. I hope isn't taken to mean that it's in any way justified, because it's not.
It's been almost 6 years, and Matt's case is now considered unsolved, the term Portland police use instead of cold case. John feels like his brother's death is on the back burner.
I still haven't had those phone calls or emails other than this one.
The last letter he says he got from detectives came in January 2017.
Even though this case remains unsolved, I do believe it is close to bringing someone accountable.
The assistant police chief didn't echo that confidence when we asked him about Matt Blanchard's case.
We've had very little development in that case. We have spoken with some witnesses and some people that have information, but they've been reluctant to cooperate.
That lack of communication, John says, drives him crazy.
It's another source of frustration for family and friends when we can't tell them every single thing that we're doing on the case. But we have to hold those investigative leads and that knowledge close to the vest so that it doesn't inhibit our abilities to investigate later.
Matt Blanchard is one of 11 unsolved homicide victims in the last decade in Portland. He leaves behind 3 young children he reconnected with shortly before his death. His brother John is healed physically. The emotional wounds may never close.
It's changed me a lot. But, I mean, for the better. Just, it didn't have to take my brother to be murdered, though.
Hi, my name is Kelly Turner. I am David Anderson's sister. My brother was murdered on March 15, 2016. I got up early in the morning to go to work, and I looked on my Facebook and I saw wrapped David.
That's how Kelly Turner found out her brother had been murdered, from his friends' posts on Facebook.
Funny, loving, caring. He would give you the shirt off his back.
She had only met her half-brother David 1 year prior.
He was finally where a place that I could actually meet him.
David struggled.
Heroin, cocaine, ecstasy. He tried everything.
After years of talking over the phone, Kelly finally met her brother. They quickly got to know one another, only to have that growing relationship ripped away.
I just wish that I had more time with him, but I didn't.
David was killed at an apartment on Gilman Street. He had been staying there with his girlfriend. They struggled to find a steady place because of their addiction. Police say someone approached the apartment that night. David went to answer the door. Before he could turn the knob, someone opened fire.
The difficulty in this particular case is that no one in the apartment saw the shooter.
Police reached out to the public for help, posting a picture of surveillance footage on the department's Facebook page. David's case is one of 11 unsolved homicides in Portland in the last decade.
Because he was a drug addict.
Kelly feels like her brother's case is not a priority.
I feel like people who live that lifestyle get pushed on the back burner. If he was rich or, lived a better life, maybe he would be a priority.
Assistant Police Chief Vern Malik insists a person's lifestyle doesn't affect the way the department investigates.
Whether or not someone's homeless, whether or not they're a drug addict, whether or not they're anything, doesn't matter to us. We're going to investigate that crime because we feel like it's important to get the perpetrators off the streets.
News Center Maine spent 6 months collecting and analyzing data on the city of Portland's homicides from 2007 to 2017. In that time, nearly half of cases went unsolved. Why? Malik says drug-related cases are tougher to close.
I don't know if that's because people are less willing to come forward and cooperate, but certainly many of the unsolved cases involve drugs.
Our investigation shows that in that 10-year period, about 11% of Portland's homicide cases are drug-related, including David Anderson's death.
That was one of my biggest fears, of losing him to that or a drug overdose, and I kept begging him to get out of that.
The surveillance pictures didn't yield many results for detectives, but the assistant chief says the case is active.
But there have been no arrests.
Do you feel like you're close to any arrest?
I will say that investigation is currently still active and being worked.
Still, Kelly's disappointed in the limited information she's received from the department.
I feel like they should be more updating, us.
She wants an answer to the question that keeps her up at night. Who killed her brother?
When I reach out, call back and let me know.
She was looking forward to getting to know him, but instead has to live her life without him around.
Having my wedding was very hard. Sorry. He wasn't there. And I wish he was.
Kelly's convinced that someone knows something they're not saying and says she won't rest until she knows what happened.
I wonder if he's at peace. Because I know I'm not, and I won't until we get justice.
Hi, my name is Christy, and my friend Brian Garcia was killed on February 27, 2017. When I pulled in my driveway, I saw the detectives, and I just fell over. Because I knew it was true. It's really hard.
A musician and dancer with a love of adventure, Brian's energy was contagious.
My nieces and nephews loved him, my sisters loved him, my parents loved him.
I'm number one.
He was one of us.
A transplant from California, Brian found a second home with Christy McCarthy and her family. Their friendship soon turned into love.
I remember this text message. He was just like, I'm tired of the in-between.
After several years together, the relationship shifted.
He just kind of got mixed up with the wrong crowd.
Brian got tied up in drugs, and he and Christy went their separate ways. But he was a part of the family. She still saw him every day, even the day he died.
I never wanted him to leave when he was around, but that day in particular, I held them for a long time. I didn't realize it'd be the last hug I ever got from him.
That afternoon, Brian was dead, found slumped over inside his car in Portland's West End. Christy was 2 blocks away at work. She rushed home when friends texted her to let her know something was wrong.
I was at the stop sign that's like right there. Like if I had looked left, I would have seen like the scene.
When she got home, the detectives were in her driveway.
The scream that came from like so deep within me, and like I can't even like explain it because it's just nothing I've ever felt before. Sounds that I didn't even know I could make.
Before she could process what happened, the comments online came rolling in.
He didn't deserve this. And I feel like a lot of people think he did because of his past. And that's been actually one of the hardest things. Is like everyone just being so judgmental before they really know who he is.
Brian had a record, drugs and firearms. He was a lifetime registered sex offender after a 2006 misdemeanor conviction for sexual abuse of a minor. Friends say he was dating the victim when a family member reported the relationship. Portland police have been silent about Brian Garcia's case until our cameras were rolling almost 1 year later. Does the department believe that drugs or drug dealing played any role in that case?
Yes, we do.
Assistant Police Chief Vern Malik says detectives traveled out of state to follow leads a few months ago, and that Brian's case is still being actively investigated. Christy says she hasn't been given any details because she isn't technically Brian's family.
It was almost like I felt like I was going in there too much to ask them questions or see what was happening, because then they're like, well, we can email. But I haven't received one email.
Nearly half of Portland's homicide cases from the last decade are unsolved. The assistant police chief says releasing too many details to families could unravel the department's progress.
We can't tell them every single thing that we're doing on the case. But we have to hold those investigative leads and that knowledge close to the vest.
Christy is back to work after months of grieving.
You never realize how much pictures are gonna mean to you.
She's reminded of Brian every day, in pictures and from her family, including her young nephew.
He's always asking me, like, where's Brian? Where's Brian? And it's like, what do I say?
What do you say when you don't know what happened, who did it, or why?
It's hard. It's really hard. Because I'm trying to continue to live my life. But in the back of my mind, I'm just like, who did this? Like, who took him? Because they didn't just hurt him. They hurt everyone that he was connected to.